back in the old days, I mean, when you'd see a band like Queen who had 2,000 par cans, and guys had to go in the roof every day and focus every one of those cans by hand. You know, now the guy's got a little squirrel mouse thing, one of their new little technology creeps, and they just sit on the ground and they.
So, for the industry, what do you think the biggest change is from when you started to where we are today? I mean, and I know that's a tall.
I would really have to say technology. Technology has changed everything, and it's made things safer. It's made things lighter. Not everything's light. I mean, there's still some heavy equipment in this industry. Don't get me wrong, but just with the modernization of lighting, of video. There was no video when I started. There was screens about 10 years after I started, but there was no video walls. There was no LED.
There was none of that. It was a great day back then. No, I'm kidding. I'm sorry to all the video people out there. Got to take my shot.
Well, now video is the new lighting as well.
It is. The lighting guys are getting to be, video. And I mean, it's all kind of merging into one.
You're seeing, but back in the old days, I mean, when you'd see a band like Queen who had 2,000 par cans, and guys had to go in the roof every day and focus every one of those cans by hand. You know, now the guy's got a little squirrel mouse thing, one of their new little technology creeps, and they just sit on the ground and they, it's all done via MIDI and all, with all their great connections and whatnot they have. And so to see old school players, like the AC/DCs, like your Black Sabbath, Ozzy and people like that, to see him now on I saw all these bands when I was a kid. Yeah. And to see him, now with new technology, it's just like, it's really amazing to see, it's a lot, a lot less stuff in the truck, a lot less weight in the truck. A
lot less trucks.
Well, not necessarily.
Well, I mean,
don't tell Jay and Beyonce that. Yeah,
absolutely. But I mean, overall, what used to take 4 or 5 trucks, now we can be down to 1 or 2.
PA, for instance. I mean, you would have on a big rock tour doing arenas, you'd have 3 or 4, 4 or 5 trucks for audio, and now you can put a beautiful line array and your board groups in a truck. Yeah.
So do you think? And here's a $1 million question. Do you think that the technology has made the shows better? Or do you think it's taken away from the artists on stage? Or do you think, that's a loaded question.
Well, I look at it 2 different ways. To me, there's artists nowadays, and I'm old. So I'm,
You are old.
I've worked with, Carole King and Billy Bob Thornton and all these different artists. And
well, you did Jesus' first tour as well, I
did Crucifix tour back in
tour.
Zero.
Yeah, that was great. I mean,
that was the first one.
That was the BC one.
We didn't have wheels on the cases. We had logs.
You just dragged them.
We had logs, and the guys would run, and you would roll a little bit, and they would take the log from behind and put it in the front.
Using trucking company, the dinosaurs were your trucking company.
Yeah,
I love
absolutely.
That. Yeah, those
elephants.
Yeah, those are the great days.
We got a lot of gear on elephants.
Yeah, a lot less lip from the stagehands.
We had any problem with it, we just put them under the foot of an elephant and crush them.
There you go. So, but back to the technology.
I think that it has made it better, but it's made the shows way better and way more enjoyable for an audience. Songwriting hasn't been as good since the 70s to me. To me, the 60s, 50s, 60s, 70s, and even into the 80s were, my favorite songs that were written. The newer stuff, I like some new rock bands and stuff, but it's pretty few and far between. I put on the classics, like John Gruden from the Raiders would say, he goes, if you had one album in the world to pick, what album would you listen to?
Ooh, that's a good one.
And he said, flat out, Back in Black by AC/DC.
Yeah.
He goes, there's just not even a question. There's no better record.
No.
Front to back. So.
A lot of babies were made to that album.
Sure. I don't know if the moms would admit it, but the dads.
Yeah, the dads, yeah. So with the size of the productions now, and they're getting so complex, what do you think the challenges are nowadays that they weren't there 5, even 10 years ago? I think it's more 5 years ago. I think the productions have escalated to levels that we couldn't have even if we would have sat back 10 years ago and thought about what 2018 productions would like, we would have been wrong.
Yeah. Like look back about 10 years ago, for instance, Rolling Stones did a tour with 100 trucks.
Yep.
100 semis. Now, I was talking to Opie about this, and I said, what's the worst part of your day? He goes, when truck 73 isn't where it's supposed to be, and everything's lined up in order, and your truck's out of sequence that has to go in, that that
you need those parts.
And it's just the magnitude of that. I mean, think about that. That's 100 truck drivers. That's an army to feed. That's just the trucking. You got video, audio, lighting, wardrobe, set guys, riggers. I mean, it is such a massive undertaking. We just finished. We're just getting ready to wrap up our last 9 shows with Guns N' Roses now, and so it's amazing to see, like Opie's productions on the road, because they're the best as far as
absolutely
togetherness. I mean, he's just got it down to an art. There's a few guys. Jake Berry out there is legendary, and Jake changed the entire music industry single-handedly. He made big productions possible. Bill Graham was the first one that did stadium tours, but a guy like Jake Berry made the scale of touring that way so much easier and so much more organized and together. So he's taught so many different people, from your Springos who does McCartney to your, Opie. And I mean, we all really learned from Jake.
Yeah.
I mean, most production and stage managers, if you've had the opportunity to work with Jake, you're blessed, because it's an amazing.
No, and he's an incredible person.
Yeah.
To work for.
These guys are they're just so forward thinking that, on their jobs, and they've just organized and got it together, and they can move stuff. I mean, like we just did these Guns N' Roses. We got 22 semis in stadiums, and Opie has us out of there. It takes about 4.5 hours to put our stuff up.
Incredible.
And we're out of there in 90 minutes, 100 minutes, and it's done. I mean, it's amazing to see these guys in action. Is just it's unbelievable.
So with Guns N' Roses, pretty high profile artists, how is, and I hate to bring this up, but let's talk about the White Elephant. How is the events over the last 3 years with, Manchester, with Vegas, and the security issues, how has that changed the way that you guys mentally look at venues and the way that you guys walk in? And it's a tough question, and we don't talk about it enough, I don't think.
Well, I don't think we do either. I mean, first off, we're not curing cancer or doing anything important enough. Life is way more important than anything. So, but our security team is really, really good. We're so well advanced on what we're doing. We know where to go if there's a problem. Everybody checks on each other, That's everybody, great. All department heads know where everybody in their teams are at. And you can't go through life being in fear, but you should definitely always be aware of where you're at and what your surroundings are.
I would imagine that your mental state changes depending on culturally where you are.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's like in Moscow, for instance, if just a little tip from Uncle Tom, don't go to a strip club. That's a good way to get all of your money taken from you and maybe getting beat up, so, and it's happened to kids. And
that's free advice. That's free of charge. On Backstage Productions.
First one's free. But yeah, there's certain places on earth where you'll definitely feel a little more insecure than others. But anything can happen anywhere. It doesn't matter these days. I mean, if there's somebody out there that's hell bent on hurting people, they could definitely hurt people. But they're getting better in buildings as far as security checks and making sure that trucks and like federal buildings, that they have, their ramps and speed poles and everything else as deterrent, so that they can't drive into a facility and hurt a bunch of people.
Yeah, that's great. So now to go back to the lighthearted side of life, what's the sketchiest thing or sketchiest show or project that you've been on? You're just like, get me the fuck out of here. Or you just like, these guys are a bunch of fucking clowns. I've had it.
Oh, I'll go ahead and give you that one. Listen.